2 races remain, and the mission is clear for 70 hopefuls. Do whatever it takes, entering one of the most treacherous ovals on the campaign. The eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series rolls through the rock for a contentious semifinal in round 2. With our live coverage tonight, we bring you coverage of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series right here on FTN. And with that, we're happy that you're joining us here tonight from Rockingham. It's been quite a while since we've taken the green flag for eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series action, where alongside eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series driver for Joe Gibbs Racing, Daniel Falkingham, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Now, Daniel, we've had an extended break, 3 weeks instead of the usual 2 for an every other week race. We return now to a semifinal that is as close as it could ever be between those in the point standings. Nothing is left to chance. Drivers are still not officially safe going into tonight at Rockingham.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of these guys enjoyed that extra 1 week break. Of course, we had a week break because of the new build that came in iRacing for Season 4. And now, so these guys had a little more time to try to perfect their setup for tonight's race here at Rockingham, which I think for sure is going to be the biggest challenge that we are going to see across the entire season. And I'm looking forward to see how this race is going to play out over these next 120 laps. Who's got the speed, who's going to have the grip on the long run, and who's going to come out on top.
And the elephant in the room is the point standings, where they sit after these races going into Rockingham Speedway, and it is remarkably close. Here's a look at the top 35 just to give you a scope of what's going on, especially around that cut line, Daniel. Everyone 14th through 25th, only separated by 10 points. We know that drivers at the top have the opportunity to lock themselves in after this race, but everyone further back, even higher than 14th, they still have to come out here and close this race because they could get knocked out in an instant heading into Homestead of Miami. So, like I said at the top of the show, nothing left to chance. This race is all about maximizing points and getting the best finish possible to keep yourself above that cut line.
Absolutely, and you may look at guys like Shannon Ballou, Dalton England, Max Brady. You may have a little bit of a tougher kind of time to try to get to that cut line because with how the points are going to fluctuate with the fewer drivers that will be signing up as the season goes on. But it's not over yet, so even guys like them and even like Alexander Russell, Jake Madison, James Wenzel, for example, they're still not out of it. But I want to speak about 34th place Carson Bowers real quick. He will not be participating in tonight's race due to a suspension that he had to serve last week. And the problem was just because he was suspended, he couldn't race. Where his license class, you need to be a Class A 2.0 to participate. And his class was A 1.0 during Week 13. And of course, we have the license promotion at the end of Week 13. And if you are below a 2.0 in your license, then you lose your license. You go down a level. And he went back down to Class B, and he didn't have enough time to get his license back up to Class A. So he will not be able to participate tonight and effectively ending his chances at making the Contender Series. I know it was a tough gap anyway, but for sure tonight that puts the final nail in the coffin for Carson Bowers. So just showing anything can happen when we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. And Kenneth, I think for sure we're going to see a lot of stuff happening tonight as we got cars on the track for qualifying.
We will, at one of the toughest tracks to drive across this Road Report calendar. And you look at the schedule, we're down to those last 2 races. It's now Rockingham, a short track, Homestead, Miami, a 1.5 miles. And that's all we've got for round 2. That will decide the 20 that will advance to the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series. And that will most likely take place around November time, later on in the NASCAR offseason. So it will mean a lot for those guys who are floating around above or under that cut line to make the most of these last 2 races. If you're a short track ace, make use of Rockingham if you can. But if you're not, try and do your best, then work over to Homestead of Miami and do what you can to cap off a possible successful campaign. It's been rocky for some, it's been rocky for everyone, especially after the cancellation of Pocono earlier this season, so it will mean a lot to get every last point imaginable. It will be in our split covering our end of it. The other split surely will have the same amount of stakes and the same amount of pressure for those that are involved. Let's take a look, though, at what happened several weeks ago. Our last race at the short track in Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Mile. I was not a part of that coverage, but David Kreutz and you, Daniel, you guys did a great job at filling in for me in those weeks where I was not able to be on the show. We started with Brian Mercurio up front. Some great racing and strategy took really a hold of the field early on in the race.
Yeah, we had a lot of early pitters. Like, guys would start pitting around like lap 30, 35. That's just because track position meant so much, and having some clean air was very vital. Like, it was extremely hard to pass, but some guys were trying to make some multiple grooves work. And then once this is really the race, or where the time the race flipped on his head as Jack Mays got turned into the outside wall, ending his night and ending his chances at contender. And this would bring most of the field down, but it would only leave a few guys out, like for this guy, Ethan Lane. Decided to stay out after just pitting a couple laps prior to the caution and stand on the lead lap. But this is where the good saying goes, cautions breed cautions. And then here we go, we're looking at one of the many overtime attempts that we had at the end of this race. Ethan Lane, with those heat cycles prevailing for him, he was able to hold off the rest of the field, and he was able to go on and win the race. As you see, we had lots and lots of wrecking, and here you see Ethan Lane coming around turns 3 and 4, holding off the field and coming to take his first win of the 2024 campaign, and right now putting him in a good spot to go clinch a spot in the Contender Series over the final 2 races.
He's got 115 points. That win shoots him up to 7th in the standings, so really meant a lot there for Ethan Lane, getting his, in turn, first win of the season in round 2 there at Milwaukee. It was very much a caution fest at the end, but still a ton of fun for Lane and the rest of the field as they were trying to sort things out as they head over into this one here at Rockingham Speedway. We've got drivers on the starting grid, so let's take you trackside and bring you the lineup for tonight's penultimate race of round 2 in the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series from Rockingham, North Carolina. On the pole will be the 17 of Michael Venable. He will join Robbie Vrabel Jr. as the 2 that will lead us to the green flag at the start of this one. Behind them, you will find Blake McCandless, a very strong qualifying effort in his number 9 machine. He will have Michael P. Frisch on his outside. Frisch going into this one 3rd in the Road to Pro standings. He has a shot to lock himself in to contender. Behind them, Quentin Warman starts inside of row 3. Brad Wright in the number 20 machine will start in P6. Behind them, you'll find Chanling Ballou in the 23 inside row 4. Nicholas Morse will start P8. That's outside of that row. And rounding out the top 10, Dalton S. England in the 18 and Nick Olson in the 27.
Yeah, we'll look through the rest of the order. We got Matthew Morton, Andrew Navarro. That will be starting in row 6. Brian Mercurio, who is tied for the points lead, coming in with Eddie Kerner. He'll start 13th alongside Justin Smith in row 7. Row 8, Santiago Tires and Daniel Nanny will start 15th and 16th respectively. Row 9, you're going to have David L. Brown and Nate Stewart, where Nate Stewart, he's looking good in points coming into the night. Needs a big night to make himself comfortable. And in row 10, Michael Bumgarner and Ashton Slice, who is there in the thick of it, as we'll look through the rest of your starting grid as we're getting ready to go green.
Car field from the virtual Rockingham Speedway. It is Robbie Vrabel Jr., Michael Venable bringing us to green from the Rock.
Back there on the start, Brian Mercurio is already getting aggressive there, throwing a bomb of 3 wide. He's already made up a couple places, and Robbie Vrabel Jr. has a penalty after starting in P2. He may have jumped the start a little too much. He's coming down to pit road this time by.
Just the same thing that happened to Michael P. Frisch in the opening race of this round at Chicagoland, where he had to pit under green, but made even worse, Daniel, with the fact that it's Rockingham, a shorter track that clocks in at 1.017 miles. He may even go 2 laps down beneath the field. So Vrabel with a front row start, now a rear end look as he exits the field, enters pit road all by his lonesome. Michael Venable will take over the lead. Blake McCandless shoots over to 2nd. Michael P. Frisch in 3rd in that battle for position with Quentin Warman. Those 2 Toyota Tundra TRD pros going at it, but such a big hit to Vrabel there. It's so tough, Daniel, when you get a qualifying start like that. You seem to be in high spirits, and then that penalty comes your way on lap 1 of all, and you have to go multiple laps down before you even process everything.
Yeah, and that's like we said, having a Frisch at the beginning, but that was from the pole position. This time, it was Vrabel starting in 2nd place. Maybe tried to time the start a little too much, trying to time when the green flag was going to come out. and just may have mistimed it a little too much, and now it's going to be a long night for him. It's on board Michael Venable, but don't look now. Here comes Blake McCandless. This is a race Blake McCandless was looking forward to a lot. Said this was a good chance for him to win, and now he's going to look down to the inside. We're seeing so many different lanes being run. Guys right up against the wall, and guys right on that yellow line. Lots of different lanes you can run here at Rockingham, and we'll see how much that fluctuates over the course of a run.
And for McCandless, he still has something to fight for, right? He is 13th in the round 2 standings with only 100 points, but we talked about how 14th through 25th are only separated by 10 points. Well, down to the cut line, he's only about 8 points away from being right at that bubble. McCandless is, so he needs to execute as much as he can, and as one of the commentators in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, looking to become one of the drivers, hopefully, in eNASCAR contender action later this fall. A beautiful run up high gets McCandless, so look down low in turn 1 for the race lead.
And he's going to try to bring it right down to that yellow line, do a little diamond in the middle of the corner, bring it down off turn number 2 on this very slippery and bumpy surface. And right now, it doesn't have anything right now on the bottom. So he's going to go back to the outside lane. But what I've noticed, he is very strong in 3 and 4. Look how much roll speed he has through 3 and 4 compared to Michael Venable. He's going to try to look down the inside one more time. And we'll see if he can get the pass done as he's going to go back down to the yellow line. Try to keep rolling the bottom, which is going to be pretty good for his tires. Try not to put too much stress on him as you go for the lead. But right now, you have to wait another lap.
So he'll hit that reset button. McCandless and Venable, in the meantime, have pulled away by at least half a second over 3rd place. Michael P. Frisch, he was in that fight with Quentin Warman for that 3rd spot. Still somewhat in their range, so it's not like Warman and the company behind are any farther from Frisch. They're still within some sort of range. And you see already the difference in line. Some guys aiming to go up high early on, many of those down low, and we've seen throughout the entire round 2 schedule, especially after these trucks got updated, Daniel, and with the oval refresh phase 1 coming out earlier this year, you had a ton of drivers start down low, then work their way up the racetrack as the run progresses. But with Rockingham, it's so unique in its structure and surface to where you can do something like this. Run up high at the beginning of the race, put that rubber in that lane, and get it going. A lot of drivers want to start down low, but Michael P. Frisch, McCandless, Venable showing us early that running up high may be the way to go as this track is fresh.
Yeah, for sure. But from what I've noticed, like you'd start on the bottom at the start of the run, then you'd start moving up. But it's good to see the outside lane really has already got a lot of speed in it to start out, and a lot of people have said that might be even the preferred line to start out this race with, just how much speed you carry on the top, how much grip there is on the top line. As we see Brian Mercurio, he drives it hard through 3 and 4. He's going to slide up in front of Nicholas Morse. That's going to put him into the top 10 after starting 13th.
And Brian Mercurio, the best average finish in round 2 with 4.5 over his campaign in this round, and Mercurio comes in as the points leader. So no doubt in mind that he will make eNASCAR contender later on this fall. He has shown his strength and starting to work his way up through the field. You saw him in that battle with Nicholas Morse and company. They're starting to go almost about 3 wide. Nate Stewart on the inside, Daniel Nanny up there, and that Ryko Ford F-150, and Justin R. Smith back there in the 7 car for Team Conti. He'll be back in line. 7 truck, as I should say. A little bit different when you've got some trucks out on the field, but Stewart making his run down low on Nanny, and some fantastic battles we're seeing early on. And I guess it just comes back, Daniel, to the topic that we brought up about the different lanes you can run. It opens that door up for some fantastic racing, specifically early in this run. How do you get about that if you're a driver? Do you prefer going up high here at Rockingham and arc it down low, or are you one of those faithful hugging that yellow line in this run?
Well, coming from someone who tries to run, no matter what line I try to run at Rockingham, I'm absolutely terrible at it, since for whatever reason I just do not run good at this racetrack. Is that really interesting to see, like, is there a preference? Do you like running a certain line, or is there a line that you have to run consistently to be fast? But that's what's great about this track here at Rockingham, where you can run anywhere you want on the racetrack. But we're seeing a lot of guys, they are preferring that high side because of how much speed you can roll up there. But you don't want to stress your tires too much, because you will stress them out running that outside for a little too long. But as you see, I think everyone right now, they feel good about what they have around the outside lane. The bottom really doesn't look like they have as much grip on the bottom, but the longer the race goes, the more rubber we put down. We'll see if it maybe flip-flops back to the bottom, back to the top. We'll have to wait and see, as we're right now getting close to 20 laps complete and 100 laps to go.
Looks like you got to balance it out, right, between the inside lane wearing the right front tire, the outside lane wearing the right rear tire. So it's just a mix of what do you want to wear the most and how do you want to take care of your stuff. A lot of the action happening near the mid-pack. You're seeing up front a little bit more strung out. We saw Blake McCandless put up the fight to Michael Venable, but that has since diminished. He's fallen back to the tune of about 0.3 of a second. So not necessarily pushing the issue all too much, even though he gave an effort to Venable for the race lead. But what I noticed there was that he was getting the better run on the high side, running the same line as Venable, which is interesting in these trucks, Daniel, considering the fact that these machines specifically punch such a big hole in the air aerodynamically, so you get a lot of dirty air from the back end of a truck if you're in the draft. So it's honestly surprising you're seeing McCandless run the same line, working up the racetrack as Venable, but still able to get all that momentum off the corner.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like Blake's truck is handling very good right now. And what's important is, even running this line, it's important to not stress out the tires too much. This is one of those tracks where it is very easy to wear out the tires too early, and it's easy to overheat them and kill your handling for the entire rest of the run. So as you see, everyone up here managing the first 5 or 6 trucks, single file around the top, managing their stuff right now, and kind of just going through the motions until we get the green flag pit stops later on in the race if we have a long green flag run. As we see over this overhead shot right here, we got lots of great racing in this part of the racetrack. And we got a little bit of rubbing too.
And that is Daniel Nanny, the purple and black Ryco Ford F-150 there in the middle of your screen. Down low, Justin R. Smith working his way up, and we saw Nate Stewart in that fight as well. He has since backed out. He's down to 14th. All of them trailing behind Nicholas Morse in that camo-esque paint scheme. His Chevy Silverado running nicely there just outside of the top 10, but Nanny and Smith continue to go blow for blow here at Rockingham, 21 laps in. And this is a relatively short race, Daniel, so you're looking at a driver, if he's at the back of the field to start, he desperately wants to work up, especially if they're in one of those tight point situations to where they may fall short of that cut line if they don't work up through the field in enough time. But let's talk a bit of strategy. It's a contact between Nanny and Smith, gets Smith sideways, but he holds on to it prior to turn 1.
He does hang on to it, a little bit of smoke there, a little bit of a wiggle down the front straightaway, but he hangs on to it. But unfortunately, look at him. He's kind of trapped on the bottom, and everyone's going around him on the top, which looks like the outside for sure is the preferred line around here right now. So he's going to have to fight hard to try not to lose too many spots as he's being pinned on the bottom right now. As you guys see 1, 2, 3 trucks. As you got 2 Nexus trucks lined up right there going around the outside, and then you got Ashton Slice behind those 2. Trying to make up some ground. Ashton Slice is someone I got to give my applause to so far in round 2. He is only 4 points out of the cut line, and when he was like one of the last to make it into round 2, and he's been overlooked by a lot of people to not really even be in the fight, but here he is with 2 races left, and all you need at this time of the year, all you need is just one opportunity, and you need one shot, and right now he's doing it to the fullest extent.
You can say he's just like Pitbull. He feels like the underdog. He likes to be the underdog. Ashton Slice came away with a 5th place finish 3 weeks ago at the Milwaukee Mile, and that certainly has helped him points-wise to get into the position where he is. Still a viable shot at getting into the top 20, and obviously Rockingham isn't the be-all, end-all for round 2. We still have 1 race left to go at Homestead of Miami, but Daniel, the penultimate race certainly might be just as, if not more important than the final race of the round, because you're looking at how you set yourself up for that final race of, in this case, the round 2 season. So guys who maybe don't perform as well here, dig themselves in a little bit of a hole, will have a bigger task at hand coming to Homestead. But if you're able to ease into that positive momentum, you may give yourself a lighter workload going into South Florida.
Yeah, for sure. This is the race that's going to pretty much set up how you will go into the final race at Homestead. Like, how do you need to attack the race? How do you just need to attack just the week overall? Like, in terms of setups, or like, how do you prepare for the race? Where, when we go to Homestead, I believe in one of our splits last year, it went green the entire way. We only had 1 yellow in the other split, too. So, Homestead might have that green flag feel to it, just like we had a year ago. And even the year before that, when the Road to Pro finale was at Texas, that race went all green as well. So definitely a lot to think about how you prepare for Homestead. And pretty much you got to set yourselves up for success. If you're right on that cut line, or even if you're a few points above it, you got to plan accordingly, as we have our first yellow flag of the day.
First caution out, David L. Brown, the man in trouble, and he brings Robbie Vrabel Jr. with him. So an insult to injury for Vrabel, who got that start penalty on lap 1, had to duck down pit road, fell a lap down. He will get his lap back, maybe, but if he's involved in this incident, that lucky dog candidacy might just wash away. David O'Brown, one of those Ford F-150s repping Nexus Esports with Front Row Motorsports this year, in trouble early on, bringing out our first yellow of the night, lap 29. So let's dial up exactly what happened. This is running off of turn 4, and from what I saw, Daniel, it looked like trouble. Middle 3 wide, never a good thing, specifically here at Rockingham.
Yeah, just cutting down off turn 4, and oh, Nanny just comes off the wall just a little bit across Justin R. Smith. Does a 360 and a half, or does a 360 and then some. And there you see Vrabel, he doesn't hit him, gets in the grass a little bit, but hopefully that's not going to affect his lucky dog status, because I believe you do come to a complete stop right there, then he won't be eligible for it, or if he just gets a 1x from going through the grass. So we'll see what that happens right here, as there you see on board David Brown going around. But more importantly, doesn't look like he has any damage, as the whole field is coming down for their first round of stops.
Here they come. Michael Venable, the driver who's led the most laps up until now. Blake McCandless, who has been right behind the entire way. All of them coming in for some casual stops here. It seems like the call, 4 tires and fuel to get you through the way. We were about to talk strategy, but it seems like they may just delay itself a little bit just because of everything that's going on. 4 fresh tires and fuel for everyone. Battle for second. Heated up. Michael P. Frisch almost there to beat Blake McCandless to the pit lane exit line. But McCandless gets away scot-free. Frisch ends up 3rd. Everyone's still following this Nexus Esports Ford F-150 of Michael Venable. What a standout run it's been so far. Front row start for Venable, making use of Vrabel Jr.'s penalty, and now he's got a shot to lead this field back once again as they'll pick up the iRacing official pace car. I think the good news for Robbie Vrabel Jr. is that he will gain some spots, and it appears he will also gain that lap back. So did not get any incident points from being close to that David Brown spin at the exit of turn 4. He'll take his Chevrolet down pit road for extra measure. He'll come in now, but that'll be good for this man right here, Daniel Falkingham, just because, you know, being a lap down early isn't fun, especially when it goes all the way green. First yellow gives you that first break.
Well, you want to talk about strategy? Let's look at 10th place Max Brady. He started 22nd, was running right just inside the top 20 right there. He took 2 tires on that pit stop under yellow right there. So we'll see how much that's going to change his handling, but we'll see if this is going to be a net gain with all the track position he's going to gain out of this. Went from somewhere right around 18th to 19th, and now he is up inside the top 10 for the first time tonight, which is huge for him because he is one of those drivers that needs a lot of points after tonight, as he came in not in the greatest spots, but just a lot of points out of tonight. He can evaporate that really quickly.
He came into this race 29th in Road to Pro Round 2 standings with a total of about 84 points, which is about 8 points shy of that cut line. Again, it's not a big deficit for Brady, but he's up 20 or 12 spots since the drop of the green flag after starting in 22nd. I'm not sure, as a driver, Daniel, do you like this call? 2 tires here at Rockingham?
Well, I mean, at Rockingham, it's always, if you think of it in the real world, it might not work, but in iRacing, it seems like you can make the most unimaginable work. So we'll see how this works out for Max Brady, where, I mean, he's got the track position, and we only run 20 laps, so if he, or excuse me, we only run 30 laps, so if he hasn't run out those left side tires too much, then this is going to be a very net positive for him. But we'll see how this restart shakes out, as we are getting ready to restart with just under 90 laps to go, and I think we're right on the threshold of the fuel window. I don't know if these guys got to pit one more time, or if they can save enough and go the rest of the way. We'll have to find out as we get ready to get back underway.
It will be marginally close, that's definitely for sure. Michael Venable, Blake McCandless, the front row, sharing this restart here on lap number 33. We saw them almost go for a top-sided battle. Well, they do it again, this time in this run. Venable waits until the last moment, gets a good jump. Back to turn 1, our first official restart brings almost 3 wide in the mid-pack, but Michael P. Frisch got the jump to the inside of Blake McCandless for P2.
And Frisch is going to slap in front of McCandless. Great restart for him. He's going to move up to P2, and then you got McCandless, Warman, and others. That we're a 3x3 here in the middle of the pack. Navarro's going to get sent sideways right there. He hangs on to it. That was Santiago Tires, I believe, that got in the back of him. And then Daniel Nanny's going crazy. He's getting pushed. He's getting spun out. There goes Slice hard into the outside wall, along with another. I believe that might be Mitchell Hunt. Or no, or is that the 24? I believe. No, that's Nicholas Morris, excuse me. That paint scheme reminded me of Mitchell Hunt vibes right there, but that is Nicholas Morris into the outside wall, but Ashton Schleiss took the hardest hit of them all. He's going to toe to pit lane, and that might be the end of his night right there.
And we talked about how Schleiss was one of those underdogs working his way up through points. This one will be a sizable dagger, and it looked like trouble going off of turn 4. They were 3 wide. We saw what happened in the aftermath of Andrew Navarro getting loose, but this is what begins the incident. Nanny, Morse, and Schleiss all directly involved in this crash, and this is around Justin R. Smith, and they tangled together. Morse and Nanny got stuck together. Look at Nanny catching air twice right before he taps the outside wall, and Ashton Schleiss with the hardest hit we have seen all night long. That Chevrolet gets absolutely torn up in this one as he has nowhere to go in this incident. A look on board from Schleiss on the inside.
Yeah, right, just the most innocent bystander. As you see, he had Andrew Navarro below him, who he got knocked sideways onto the apron, and then just got turned at really the worst point. Entry to the corner, full speed, head onto the outside wall, blowing up his motor. And looks like, yeah, like I said, that's going to be the end of the night for Schleiss, and probably the end of his Contender Series hopes.
There is Daniel Nanny working his way onto pit road. He did not tow, but he took heavy hits in that accident there, specifically on the rear end of the race car, so he's down. Nicholas Morse, who has fallen a lap down, he's in his stall, and you can see the damage there, specifically on the left front. That Chevrolet is a bit torn up. Andrew Navarro coming down pit road just for extra reassurance, and some others that have also taken pit lane. I believe David L. Brown, the driver who caused our first yellow of the night with a spin off turn 4, he also takes his Ford F-150 down the lane. So bringing us under our second caution of the night here at lap 36. And with that, Daniel, we were bringing up, or at least you brought it up just prior to the restart, how close is it going to be at the fuel window? I'd say this is a blessing in disguise. Gives these drivers mentally the opportunity to reset, but also gives them a chance to hold that clutch in, save a bit of fuel just before they get back going.
Yeah, I saw. I heard a little bit what you said there, because right now I got a lot of beef in my ear right now over the radio between Nicholas Morris and Ashton Schleiss after debating that little incident right there, and I don't got a mute button set right now, so I can't mute the conversation, but a little bit of tempers under caution here discussing the incident. Ashton Schleiss not happy, which is very understandable, as he is pretty much the biggest innocent bystander right there. And, yeah, well, going to be some discussions had probably at the end of this race as we're going back green.
Well, you know what? That's a product of short track racing. You're going to have the short track tempers. What did Denny Hamlin say a bunch of years ago? It's short track racing. Trying to make fun of Joey Logano in that moment. They had some tempers in that as well. So, you know, maybe the drivers in the back, especially in their point situation, they are not happy. Ashton Schleiss has taken his Chevrolet behind the wall. He is out of tonight's race from Rockingham, meaning he'll have to work up to Homestead of Miami Speedway and definitely have a standout performance if he wants to advance into the top 20 for eNASCAR contender territory. Meanwhile, the restart ready, a lap 38, this time inside line, again with the better jump. Venable leads the field back to turn 1. McCandless brings the fight to Michael P. Frisch on the inside, and we are door to door for about 3 or 4 rows deep.
And they're going to try to sort that out back to double wide down the back straightaway, as Brian Mercurio been a solid, one of the biggest movers of the race so far. Started 13th, and is going to try to crack into this top 5 just on the outside right now in P6, as Michael Venable is going to lead him back to the stripe one more time.
Look on board from Mercurio on the inside lane. Mercurio led a ton of laps at the last short track race on the Milwaukee Mile. Strategy took him out of the chance to win that one. He fell just behind Ethan Lane, but as the points leader going into this one, a ton of confidence and obviously a ton of speed. Mercurio, one of the biggest movers tonight, still in this fight with Brad Wright, gets moved up the racetrack. This one behind, Dalton S. England finished inside the top 11 at Milwaukee, and Nick Olson, that Team Conti Chevrolet, working right behind him. They may be the first side-by-side battle if we're not talking about what's happening for P4. Channing Ballo in his Team Conti machine under the Ryko Toyota Tundra of Quentin Warman. Just got that wrong 2 times, but Quentin Warman on the outside, still in this fight for 4th place.
Yeah, don't worry. I've gotten many paint schemes wrong and many trucks wrong in my time as a commentator. But anyway, looking out the back, Quentin Warman right here, riding in the 4th position, looking like in a good spot. As Channing Ballou got really close to his quarter panel right there. Maybe trying to do a little bit of a side draft right there, trying to get the best arc possible into the corner. But right now, some great side-by-side action. The top seems to be more preferred at the moment, right off the restart. But you see Ballou, he's trying to make that bottom work, as now looks like Quentin Warman, he's going to go for 3rd place on the 58 machine of Michael Frisch, and not going to quite get it done this time around.
Similar to what we saw in the first run, Warman trying to make the pressure happen for 3rd place, still unsuccessful in his bid, specifically down the inside. Here at Rockingham, you can make the outside work very well off the corner, and you can easily get to a car length or 2 ahead of the driver that runs the inside lane, just because it takes them a little longer just to apply that throttle pedal. Warman still adamant in getting down to the inside of Frisch for that podium spot, but cannot do it. And here comes Ballo back to the inside, making it work in the battle for what is now 4th place. Warman came into this event 12th in Road to Pro standings with 102 points. And as we talk about, things are so tight, even if you're one of those top 10 or around that top 10. So Warman certainly not safe of being bumped out, but say with his consistency as of late and one of the averages finishes that is relatively high in Road to Pro standings with about 11.5. I'd say he's doing pretty well. And here comes Ballo down low for 4th.
Back down low, side by side off turn number 4. They're back to the start-finish line to complete lap number 44 on the lap 45. Ballou, he's going to keep fighting on that bottom, and he looked almost 3 wide right there. Looks like Quentin Warman didn't quite have enough to get to the middle right there to be 3 wide. Back down to turn number 3, looking out the back of the bar visuals machine of Michael Frisch. Really looking at right up against the wall, trying to find all the grip he can. And going to get a great drive off his Channing Ballou. He's going to try to keep working him over, or should I say Quentin Warman over, try to run that bottom. But you see, everyone is running every single lane. The leaders are running the bottom, 3rd and 4th running the top. And everyone's just all over the place. This is just great racing right now.
Well, what matters more right here as a driver, Daniel? Running up the top, getting the more momentum off the corners, or is it running the bottom faithfully to what Channing Ballou is doing, even though he's a bit unsuccessful in his attempts to get by Warman?
Yeah, well, right now he has no pressure at all from Brad Wright right now, so I think he's free to try to continue to run the bottom to see if he can find anything. But if he starts feeling pressure from Brad Wright, who is running the top behind him, then he might have to start moving back up to just protect, getting his right rear hung, protect the outside lane so he doesn't keep losing too many spots. But right now you see Blake McCandless closing in on Michael Venable once again. Blake does seem to have one of the faster trucks right now, but right now trying to just find a way to get around him. But right now he's content being in 2nd place right now and is trying to look to attack when we get longer into this run, because we know Blake is a very big fan of Rockingham. He gets around this place well, and when the opportunity arises to maybe go for that win, he's going to be right there to pounce.
McCandless, that time by exactly the same as Michael Venable, 24.69 between those two. So it is basically mirror image between 1st and 2nd. Quentin Warman again trying on Michael P. Frisch, but unsuccessful in his attempts. And McCandless has been close just to getting to Venable's machine. We saw that specifically in that first run, lagging a little bit back here, but just equalizing in pace. Just probably waiting for the right moment to strike, especially if this race goes green, where McCandless is one of those drivers who likes to play strategy a little differently than most, likes to stray away from the crowd. I remember several moments, Daniel, where McCandless, especially in a why not attitude, doing anything possible to either not take tires or pit very early compared to everyone else and save as much fuel as possible, do outrageous strategies that work in his favor just because he's so skilled to be able to do that. So McCandless might have something up his sleeve, but at lap 51, no dice yet for Venable.
Yeah, nothing right now. I think everyone's just content with just trying to just get settled into this long run that we're kind of trying to develop into. So far, as you see, like, just look how close everyone is right now. Everyone is very close on speed, very close in skill level here. That we got like a 4, 5, 6 truck race, 6 trucks just about underneath, all within a second. Just throw a big old blanket over them. But right now, everyone is content riding in line, saving their tires, and just getting ready for a long run. And once we get maybe even 10, another 20 laps into this run, we'll really see who is strong in the long run, who took care of their tires really well. And we'll see. We'll just see how it comes out, because right now it's pretty standard formation right now.
So Venable, McCandless, Frisch, Warman, Ballou, your top 5. Brad Wright is hunting down Ballou for that 5th spot, but nothing of it quite yet. Battle for the top 15 position. This is Garrison Hogan for that Team Nitro Circus Sim Racing group. Posted about Hogan on Twitter and his chances to try and advance into contender. He's in this contentious fight, almost making contact with the Chevrolet up front. That's Rocky Boyd III. And here comes Matt Danson for Alton's Engineering, working his way on by. And by the way, Justin R. Smith is here as well, the driver who has been involved in several accidents or has been around it for the most part. Nice recovery so far. He's 17th, still working his way up.
Still working his way up, as we saw. Like, I had that little incident with down the front straightaway, I believe, with Daniel Nanny. And he's trying to kind of recover his race now at the moment as he's down in the 17th position from his 14th position. So still trying to work his way back up through the field. And speaking of working their way up through the field, we got a lot of big movers. Like Garrison Hogan, he started 26th up to 16th. Mercurio started 13th up to 7th. Michael Bumgarner, he started 19th. And he cracked the top 10 along with Nate Stewart, who started 18th and is up to 9th. So we got a lot of comers and goers in this race so far, and that's just kind of how things go at Rockingham too. You see a lot of people who are very strong. They may start in the back of the field, but they can get through the field and get up front very quickly as the run goes on. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of that right now as we're closing in on halfway. We're almost already halfway through it. This race is flying by.
It's going by very quick. It's how Rockingham is, clocking in at just a little over a mile. And this is great news for Michael Bumgarner, as you noted, Daniel, how much he's been moving through the field over the course of this race. Bumgarner is one of those barely hanging on to a top 20 spot coming into this one, 18th in standings with 95 points, only about 3 points away from Brad Wright, who is also having a whale of a race, sitting just outside of the top 5. Both of these guys who are either slightly above or right below the cut line, doing fantastic in their efforts of being above and getting into contenders, specifically Wright, who has demonstrated so much pace over the course of this event, and still a ton of position left to grab with what's going on in front between Ballou and Warman.
Yeah, very, very big battles up here, trying to get back into the top 5 here as Ballou, he's trying to look for a spot, or they're trying to go for 4th place. He's already in the top 5. Brad Wright, he's closed in on this battle. Got a big old 5-truck race for really P2 as Late McCandless has seemed to have fallen off of Michael Venable just a little bit and has kind of fallen into the clutches of his teammate Michael Frisch. And then you got Quentin Warman, Shannon Ballou, and Brad Wright that are just waiting in the wings, ready to pounce if there is a huge mistake. I want to go back quickly to talk about 9th place. Nate Stewart, who he came in, which I believe above the cut line. Yes, he came in 11th in the standings, 12 ahead of the cut. Really been a quiet season for him, but I mean that's always a good thing. It never can be a bad thing. Where I believe he had a best run of 4th a couple weeks ago at Watkins Glen, which really gave him a big points buffer. And it didn't have the greatest of showings last time out in Milwaukee, but right now he's got the buffer in his favor to advance to the Contender Series. For the first time, he has never made it through round 2 of Road to Pro in the last several years. He's done it, and right now this is his best chance to make it to the Contender Series, and right now he's doing what he needs to do, running inside the top 10.
And Stewart has been so close multiple times on. We can recall several years to where Stewart has been right on the edge of the cut line to either make it past Road to Pro, even in the first or second round. So great to see Stewart standing on business right now, trying to get past Dalton England, the Chevrolet up front in position number 8. We may have a 3-truck battle before we get our eyes closed in just a moment. Michael Bumgarner starting to enter this fight. Maybe a bit of Matthew Morton in the number 4 Nexus Esports Front Row Motorsports Ford F-150. And he was a driver, Daniel, who's had to go through this Road to Pro ladder. You know the emotions behind the anxiety, the anticipation, and just everything that goes with it when you're trying to make the Coke Series. It is an attainable goal, obviously, as many have shown throughout the years, but it is a really, really tough road up the mountain, specifically with how many drivers you have to beat for. So for someone like Nate to even get past step 1, or rather step 2, to make it to contender, if he gets a good finish here at Rockingham and at Homestead, that sigh of relief will be a big one.
For sure. Trying to just make it through the rounds one by one is important, just like Shannon Ballou, who is making his way through the field as he has just cleared Quentin Warman for P4, and now he's trying to pursue P3, maybe even P2. He looks on rails right now. Oh, he's going to get a little bump from Warman going into the corner. I think he backed up the entry a little too much, and Quentin Warman didn't expect it right there. But right now, he seems to have something figured out on the bottom. Definitely one of the fastest trucks inside the top 5 right now, and he is going to work, just ripping that yellow line on the bottom.
His last lap, a 25.525, one of the fastest inside the top runners other than your race leader, Michael Venable, who this time by set to 25.471. Baloo got a shot there from Warman entering turn 1, a bit of a scare. Had to correct the truck just before he can continue making his way midway through the corner. Just a miscommunication on the braking entry for Baloo and Warman, but they sorted it all out. This battle continuing, and we may even see Michael P. Frisch get a look either on the in or outside here of Blake McCandless. A beautiful run entering the first 2 corners. Frisch will have a run up the high side, might just be able to work down low on McCandless if he's able to close that gap in enough time. But everyone, it appears, Daniel, starting to accordion back together. We saw a ton of separation earlier in this run, some decent battles here and there, but everyone was in their own zip code. Now everyone's work coming back together in a way, and it's creating sizable packs that will be a big time player if we have strategy involved in the home stretch.
Yeah, for Michael Venable right now, he's on cruise control. He has got a huge gap on everyone in the field right now, and right now is just kind of enjoying a nice Thursday night drive here in Rockingham, here in North Carolina. Just trying to get to the end of the race, hoping the race stays green, and just waiting to see how the strategy is going to play out. Now, we did have that caution, which allowed these guys to save a little bit of fuel, but wasn't enough to get these guys to the end of the race. It's going to be very close, but I believe it's around 80 to 85 laps is the fuel window, so if we're going to be seeing any pit stops, it's going to be happening fairly soon, probably within the next 10 or 15 laps, but these guys might have enough to make it, so we'll have to wait and see. Right now, Venable getting up to almost nearly a 2-second lead as we complete lap 69.
Venable is all by himself. Noted the pressure from McCandless earlier in this race. That is all gone now, and McCandless now has to worry about the bar visuals Toyota Tundra TRD Pro of Michael P. Frisch. A successful look down low. Can he complete the rest in 3 and 4? The answer, a resounding no. Has to back out, but goes up high, tries to flirt down the middle just to get to McCandless's rear bumper, but at the moment, no call there for Frisch. He'll hold on to 3rd as it stands. And we didn't really talk about the position that Michael Venable is in right now in points. He is below the cut line by 2 points. He's led the most laps out of anyone tonight. He's only not led 1 lap, and that was courtesy of Robbie Vrabel Jr., but basically, this entire race, Venable has been in control, and you need a night like this if you're this man right here who desperately needs to get above that cut line, to get a right step forward heading into Homestead, Miami. This is positivity for Michael Venable, away by 1.8 seconds over everyone else in the field.
Well, the 3 of these guys up here, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, have broken away. We're having a little bit of tussle to get in the top 5. Quinton Warman starting to hold up this group just a little bit with Brian Mercurio. He's making a move up to 6th place. And look at Nate Stewart. He's making a move around the outside of Michael Bumgarner, or excuse me, that's Brad Wright, to get into the trouble, and he's up into the outside wall from contact with Brad Wright. He's going to hang on to it. Not sure how bad the damage is going to be on that, but he saves it. And we stay green, but a big scare right there.
Doesn't appear to be that shabby for Nate Stewart, who keeps his Toyota collected, but he will lose the track position. Bumgarner makes his way under. Matthew Morton trying to work under, and possibly a bit of Dalton S. England, but he had to back out in the midst of all of that. Take a look at exactly how that all unfolded. Entering turn 1, and like we talked about, that accordion starting to create wonderful battles, but maybe scares like this, right down the inside, getting to Stewart. Not sure if Stewart had lost the race truck prior to Wright making that contact, but it certainly gave him some help, and he was on the outside 3 wide momentarily. Thankfully, Stewart able to hold on to the truck and keep this race under green.
Yeah, there was definitely contact going into 1 and 2. Brad Wright running really, really high going into 1 and 2 that time, but looking at everyone else, looking like Nate might have escaped without any damage. Just had a slight graze to the wall. Really, the only damage that could be done was probably to his tires, taking some life out of them, overheating them a little bit. So he's gonna fall back a little bit here, as he was really doing good, making his way up to the field, getting up to P7 at the time we were calling that. As now we're looking on board with Channing Ballou, as he's trying to go for 3rd place, trying to get up to 2nd. As Frisch gonna get to the outside of Blake McCandless right here. McCandless biting the rear grip on that Chevrolet right there is Fresh is going to go to second, and Baloo, he's going to make his way to the podium.
McCandless's defensive armor has shattered. He drops 2 in the span of 1 straightaway. Baloo to the bottom of Michael P. Frisch in the attempted battle for P2. Meanwhile, they continue to let Venable run away with this. It's now up to 2.6 seconds. The gap between Venable and Frisch as we go under 50 laps to go from the virtual Rockingham Speedway, and it is getting fun. Now that the tires are worn out, the cliff has entered the field, and everything so much fun as McCandless may be under fire from Quentin Warman at this stage of the race. A quick reminder that if you want to join and have all the updates from the world of eNASCAR, you can scan the QR code on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, sign up for the newsletter, and get all up to date about the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series, the eNASCAR Contender iRacing series, the eNASCAR College iRacing series, and the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series set for the finale at Homestead of Miami Speedway in early October. Daniel, I know that we were talking a bit before we brought up the show tonight, and you talked about how you were barely missing out on the Championship 4 after what was a wild Phoenix race, but it is a fun season in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and I'm sure that Championship 4 will bring out the spotlight and bring out the fun in South Florida in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. Probably four very much deserving drivers in the Championship 4. It's going to be a good show at Homestead when we get there in 3 weeks. We got an extra week extra week break. So a lot of time to perfect your setups and perfect your handling, whatever you're going to need to get down to Homestead Miami Speedway. So we're going to have 2 great races really in a span of, 5 days down in virtual South Florida. So going to get to decide who's going to the Contender Series, and we have to decide who's going home $100,000 richer. So got a great bit of racing that's going to be coming up in 2 weeks when we have the Road to Pro finale and then the Coke race just a couple of days later.
It will be in the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, but the festivities will take place in the real-life NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte, North Carolina. So all the drivers will be there with their sim rigs, all the commentators will be there, the fans will be there, Dale Earnhardt Jr. will be there to hopefully present the trophy to the champion at night's end. So it is a wonderful event that iRacing started with the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series several years ago, and it has blossomed into a big-time real-life/sim racing event. We'll focus back into what's happening in this race. Michael Venable still up by 2.7 seconds over Michael P. Frisch. Battle for 6th place is starting to heat up, and what has happened to Blake McCandless, Daniel? We saw a lot of strength out of him at the beginning of this race, even in the first portion of the second run, but as this run has progressed, McCandless has fallen off quite a bit. Not sure if this is by design or if he's starting to struggle with the handling of his Silverado.
Yeah, not sure if he's just kind of his tires are giving away or unless he's maybe trying to save some fuel. Like, does he think he can make it to the end if he just starts to hard save from here on out? We'll just have to wait and see as the run goes on, as we're past 40 laps to go here in this 120-lap event. The race has been flying by with only 1 caution flag. And let's see just kind of how the strategy is going to play out. But, well, you have to see anyone from the front of the field come down pit road. So these guys trying to just go as long as possible. Maybe they can get to the end on gas, or just trying to go as long as they can where they can go hard at the end on tires for only maybe a 30-lap run or so. But if you're someone like Michael Venable, you love how this race is going right now with a near 3-second lead on Michael Frisch. Him and Frisch have been trading lap times up back and forth here. But right now, Michael Venable just pretty much setting it on cruise control right now, just like I mentioned earlier.
You know, I don't want to bring up the commentators' jinx just because I might just get absolutely crucified if it does happen in the foreseeable future, but if a caution does come out, that will change everything, and that's what happened at Milwaukee Mile. You and David Kreutz had that look going into that race, and throughout the night as it went green most of the way. Strategy took over until we had that yellow flag that turned it into a barn burner, where Ethan Lane on strategy was able to execute and get the win over Brian Mercurio. There's James Wenzel for Altus Engineering, his Chevrolet down pit road, and several others as well. Bumgarner, Nate Stewart in this time.
So I think this pretty much confirms what's going on. Some of these guys, looks like they're just got the pit for tires, come get some fresh tires, and just full send to the end as Nate Stewart's coming down pit road. We see Bumgarner, he's leaving the pit lane as we speak right now. He pitted a lap earlier. But now it's just to see, is this going to bring everyone else down? right now. We'll have to wait and see because no one from the front of the field has yet to come down pit road. So we'll have to wait and see how everything all just plays out. But if these guys that are pitting now, here comes Matt Danson. Like say, if we have a yellow right now, then that's curtains for their race. So we'll have to see what's going to happen. As Channing Ballou, he's coming out the pit lane. He was running up in third. So this might trigger some more pit stops here to bring everyone else down.
But so far, the leaders not electing to come in. Matthew Morton for Nexus Esports, the next driver who decides to hop on the brakes, go down to the left, and enter pit road. This should be a relatively quick pit stop. It will be for the 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and some fuel, but it will be very, very close. We know that drivers will be able to make it on this pit stop no matter what. It's a relatively short stint, but it'll all settle out in a relatively short time. Here's Quentin Warman pitting from 3rd place.
Yeah, I feel like if you're some of these leaders, I think time is now to pit because the longer you keep staying out on the racetrack, the more you're just going to lose time. But then again, if you get the caution flag, if you get a caution flag with how far Venable is out in front, this is going to trap so many guys a lap down. It's going to help out a lot of these guys. So Venable, he chooses to continue to stay on the racetrack. So does Frisch, Mercurio, McCandless, David L. Brown, who was involved in our only yellow of the night. He's up in 5th place right now, so a nice little comeback for him. But yeah, right now it's pit service across the field. Like Brad Wright has come down to the pit lane. Many others. Let's see, Robbie Vrabel is a lap down. He's down in the pit lane. James Wetzel, like we already mentioned, he came out of the pit lane a little bit a while ago. So yeah, well, let's have to wait and see as we see. Gotta get a look at Max Brady. I want to get a look at Max Brady here going off through turns 1 and 2. You can see up ahead of Michael Venable. He went for the 2-tire strategy. Well, it has not worked out as that is the leader right behind him that is about to put him a lap down. So for someone like Max Brady, he is begging for a caution right now because he is currently in 9th place, last car in the lead lap as everyone else has brought it down to pit road. Just right now begging for a caution as the pit stops cycle out.
Brady is running on borrowed time. That's certainly for sure as he is getting caught up by Venable. And we were listening in on Venable's machine. He is clutching and coasting through the corners. And we can almost say the same for Michael P. Frisch, but he seems to be still in the high revs, working the inside of the racetrack, and going to stay out this time by here at lap 93. So I believe we were right, Daniel, in our prediction that the fuel window is getting miraculously close for these guys that have spent a bulk of this race up front. 64 laps in their stint. Venable will let Nick Olsen by, and maybe that's the good news for Max Brady is that he saw Venable catching up, but with how slow this Ford F-150 is going around Rockingham Speedway, it may not be in jeopardy because here comes some more trucks by, all of them in their attempt to unlap themselves.
Well, right now, Blake McCandless currently streaming his Road to Pro race on Twitch. Says that he might be a lap to the good with what he's doing right now. So these guys, they are cutting it extremely close if these guys are going to make it all the way to the end. So it's going to be interesting to see like if the fuel strategy is going to work out. But I'd say if you're Venable, Frisch, Mercurio, McCandless, and you are still on the racetrack, I'd say you're keeping it out there to try to get to the end of this race without having to pit. So if a caution comes out, this is great for them because they've got so many guys to lap down. But if they do end up running out of gas, then that's it. That's going to be curtains and just not a great strategy. But I think these guys feel confident enough that these guys can go to the end on fuel as Blake McCandless, he's making a charge. Like I was just speaking of him, he's now making a charge on Mercurio, trying to get back to the podium places, back up to 3rd place. And as you see, Michael Frisch just up ahead of him in 2nd.
Well, that could possibly explain McCandless's fall through the field so early on in the 2nd run, Daniel. It possibly was just that long-term perspective of saving then, and then with not having to worry now. As Nate Stewart works his way by, he's one of those trucks looking to unlap himself. 18th place is where Stewart stands, still has to get by Robbie Vrabel Jr. and now Max Brady, who just went a lap down off of the race leader Michael Venable as he gets passed here by Vrabel coming off of turn 4. So for Stewart, he needs to gain a bunch of ground in a limited amount of time and hope too that a yellow flag comes out, because if not, then it may be game over for Stewart if he wants to get back on the lead lap. There's the calling card for the JDR Graphics Chevrolet. Max Brady in with 22 laps to go.
It's like you're talking about game over, possibly for some other. It looks like it's officially game over for Max Brady as he's coming down to pit road. He can't make it on gas. He's going to come in for 4 freshies. He's going to drop at least another 2 laps, probably dropping outside. He's going to be back down to 24th, the 4th, the last car in this race. So that's just not the race for Max Brady. It's going to be a really tough night for him and probably the end of his Contender Series chances as well. A lot of guys, chances at round 2 pretty much going up in smoke tonight as we've seen for so much of this race. But looking at guys getting back on the lead lap, Brad Wright, Dalton England, James Wenzel, Bumgarner, Channing Ballou, Robbie Vrabel, they have all just gotten back on the lead lap. Those guys were on their freshest tires with only 20 laps to go. I don't think it's going to be enough of a gap to close down on the leader of Michael Venable, but we'll see if they can actually get any more positions out of this.
Well,
Going to be kind of interested to see how much they're going to move up through the field here.
Well, they may not catch up to the leader, but they may give us a wonderful battle. Coming down to the end of this race, all 4 of these trucks under a blanket by at least half a second. All the way at the back is Channing Ballou, who we saw enter pit road not that long ago. Remember, this is still for a track position and worthy track position that will reward in some great points, specifically for guys like Bumgarner, who we talked about going into this race. Only 3 points to the good as far as that cut line is concerned. So he will have to try and make up these positions on 1 lap fresher tires. They will get by Garrison Hogan, who is still one of the trucks faithful to staying out, running 71 laps on his stint, but in turn losing a ton of ground. He drops to 15th place. And this is really where everything gets magical in terms of the strategy. All of those guys who found it worthy to stay out as long as they did, and those on the fresh tires reaping the short-term benefits, but with 18, now 17 laps to go, when they come across the line, is it worthy enough for Venable, who continues his save?
Well, we're looking at the current pace of guys like Brad Wright, Dalton England. This is going to be very close. I'm not sure how much these guys are going to fall off, but it is looking really close for this win. A lot closer than I think we originally thought. So, we're going to keep an eye out for guys like Brad Wright and Dalton England. Those some of the guys. Maybe even Nick Olson, too. He got back on the lead lap. He also made a pit stop, too. He's down in, or he's up to 8th place as well. Only 14 seconds behind Michael Venable, the leader. Like, they are cutting time, and they are cutting it fast.
And there they are, starting with England, Brad Wright, all of them on now 20-lap-old tires. You talked about Nick Olson working his way up to 8th. He's 5 laps older on tires compared to the group behind him, but still way better than those all the way at the front. It is a relatively large gap. It is 43 lap fresher tires for Nick Olson in comparison to, let's say, an Andrew Navarro, David L. Brown, who run 5th and 6th. At this moment, Brown, remember, was involved in our first caution of the race after getting spun on the back straightaway, I believe, or out of turn 4. But Brown now working up to Brian Mercurio on the fresh rubber. This is going to be for 4th place with Navarro right behind.
That is Navarro in P6. There's David L. Brown. Like we said, he was involved in our first caution, and look at him. He's trying to make moves on Brian Mercurio, but that ain't going to happen. He's going to fall back in line as we look at Andrew Navarro. And he's going to look down the inside. He's going to crack the top 5. Who he's in a tough spot in points after missing the race at the Milwaukee Mile. He is way down in the points afterwards, and he's going to need a bit of a miracle to make it up. 25 points out coming in, so it might be effectively over for him, but if he can go out and like maybe steal a win out of this thing, it might not be over for him yet.
His point total good enough for 43rd in the round 2 standings. So you're right, Daniel. By any means necessary, Navarro is a long shot, but still has a chance in these final 2 races. And you could be looking at these guys' strategy to pit earlier in the race, and you might say, well, this is the best strategy at the moment because they are starting to carve in on those at the front. It hasn't been as successful for Brown nor Navarro. They're still trying to get by, and they're going to work around the lap truck and still cannot work their way through. So they're starting to, a bit, in a way, even out with these guys on tires. There's McCandless looking under Michael P. Frisch for a moment. That was for 2nd. Meanwhile, the lead closing in. It's 3.5 seconds between Frisch and Michael Venable. This one coming down to the line at Rockingham via strategy. Venable continues to save fuel, entering 10 laps to go. But does he have enough time to hang on to it?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see. As right now, if you need to keep an eye on someone, keep an eye on Brad Wright running in P number 9. He's only about 4 or 5 seconds behind second place, and then it's another 4 seconds to the leader. I don't know if it's going to be enough to catch the leader, but I would not doubt that Brad Wright might be coming away with a runner-up finish with how fast he is on the racetrack right now.
Problem is, though, he's in this battle for 8th with Channing Ballew, and any amounts of side-by-side action will slow you down at this track specifically where so many lines have been of use. Here is Brown going to the inside, cutting back outside of Brian Mercurio. This may be for 5th place, but no success there for Brown out of Nexus Esports. What a recovery for Brown. We mentioned spinning to bring out the first yellow and off of strategy, making this recovery drive. It shows you that a mistake early in the race may not spell disaster for the rest of it. Brown with a wonderful comeback and still working on that fellow black and dark green machine. This time the Toyota Tundra TRD Pro holds on to the Ford. I'm so curious to see what happens with Venable at the very front of the field, because he has been max saving the entire time, yet continues to push this gap on Michael P. Frisch. You'd expect him to lose a ton of time, but it looks like just because they are all in the same boat, it has definitely enabled Venable to either maintain or pull away slightly entering the final 8 laps of this race. And here comes Navarro carving his way through the top 5.
He is carving his way through, But Andrew Navarro looking to steal a podium out of this. We haven't talked much about him all night until like the last several laps. Oh, but look out. Here comes Channing Ballew, bottom of Brian Mercurio, bottom of David L. Brown, trying to reclaim where he was running earlier. And then some, trying to throw it down in the inside lane. He clears Brian Mercurio, trying to now clear, I believe that is Andrew Navarro, and no, look now, I believe that's Quinton Warman. He's coming as well.
Ballew has 51 lap fresher tires in comparison to Navarro. He makes easy work of the Celebrity Cruises number 42, now going by McCandless, now going by Frisch for 2nd place. But does he have enough time to catch up to the race leader?
Well, if he's going to make it, he's got to be on the loud pedal harder than he has been the whole race. But for Michael Venable, I don't know if he really has to save much more fuel. He's been running at a great pace where he's been able to maintain it. But for Channing Ballew, even going through that traffic right there, he cut down 3/10 out of the gap. So we'll have to wait and see how much gap he cuts out this lap. I'm watching the lap times. I'm watching Venable. He's coming around through 3 and 4 as we are coming to 4 laps to go. It might be too big of a gap, but let's see the lap times here. Venable is going to cross the line, and Channing Ballew, he was 3.5 back. Last lap this time, it is down to 2.7. This race is not over.
And as a driver, if you're Michael Venable, Daniel, what do you think as you're behind the wheel? We're almost 3 wide beneath the top 5. But if you're Venable, do you start to get nervous?
Well, I think right now you just keep your eyes forward, keep driving, and just try to hang on as best you can. But coming across the line, it was 2.7 this time. But look at this pack we got right here of fresher tires and everything else. The gap is down to 2 seconds. That's another 7/10 cut out of Venable's lead. We have a race on our hands as they're getting crazy for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and just inside the top 10.
And here's a look off the front end of Channing Ballew's machine. He can see Venable in the certain distance. He still has 2 trucks to get by before he can make this a proper fight for the race lead. But he's got Quinton Warman sniffing down his tail. This could get really close for 2nd place. Venable charging to the white flag, and it's 1.2 seconds and closing.
I would say he's going to need a little bit more help. He's got to clear these guys. Garrison Hogan, he's in the wall. He's going to get out of the way. But it's going to come right down to the last lap. He might need one more. I think he's going to run out of time as Venable is taking the white flag one more time around.
Final time around Rockingham. This race turned into a strategy fest, and the gap is 0.8 of a second, but there's only half a track left. Venable heading into turn 3 and 4 as the most dominant driver of the day, saved a ton of gas. He makes it to the checkered flag, and he holds on the pressure from Ballew. Off turn 4, Michael Venable, the winner from the Rock.
What a race, what a strategy, what just great strategy there at the end. You really didn't know who was going to win there. We thought Venable had it locked up, but man, Channing Ballew, Quinton Warman, even James Wetzel, what a drive for him. We didn't talk about him the whole night. He comes home in 4th. Dalton England ends up 5th. What a mixed running order we had to end this one.
You got to give credit to Channing Baloo for giving it all that he had in those waning laps. But the time just expired at the right moment for Michael Venable, who leads 120 laps on the route to this win in the penultimate race of round 2 in this eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series. Had our hearts skipping a beat for a moment. We thought this could come down to the wire, and it almost did. But Michael Venable, so strong throughout the night on the short, medium, and long runs, and even under strategy. Venable does not crack under the pressure, and he takes his first win of the round.
Yeah, looking at guys like Michael Frisch, he was on that strategy. He ended up 19th. Last truck in the lead lap, he may have ran out of gas. Brian Mercurio, he ran out at the end. He finished 16th. And let's look at some of these guys. Bumgarner got back up to 6th. Brad Wright ended up 7th. Matthew Morton was 8th. Matt Danson 9th. Robbie Vrabel, who served a penalty on the first lap, came home in 10th. And like Blake McCandless, he ended up 11th. We'll go through the rest of the running order here in just a minute. I can't even speak right now. Like, the ending of that race was amazing. The Rock always delivers.
Unbelievable finish from Rockingham. Venable doesn't have enough fuel, but at this point, it doesn't matter. He will crawl to Rockingham victory lane, taking away, barely enough to get past the start-finish line and to take his first win of round 2. Let's get a look at your full unofficial results from Rockingham, North Carolina, a strategy classic, but Michael Venable takes away the race win. Channing Baloo gave it all that he got in the waning laps, closed in to about half a second, but he just ran out of time, closes in with P2 though, and for Venable too, coming into this race, below the cut line, will have a secured spot into the top 20 for now, entering Homestead, Miami. Quentin Warman tried to fight with Ballo for second place, but he rounds out the podium spots. We'll try and talk to all three of them before we wrap up our coverage on FTN. James Wenzel for Altus Engineering. What a strong recovery drive from 21st in the starting grid to a P4 ending here at Rockingham. Dalton S. England recovers for a top 5, so 2 straight top 15s for England after a 11th place finish at Milwaukee. Michael Bumgarner comes away with P6. Brad Wright in P7. That'll potentially help his campaign to stay above the top 20. Matthew Morton for Nexus Esports ends up 8th. Matt Danson in 9th. Robbie Vrabel Jr., how about that comeback after starting on the front row, getting a penalty on lap 1, going a lap down, and then having to be behind the 8 ball the entire way through. He ends up just inside the top 10 with Blake McCandless and Andrew Navarro outside of it barely, but hung on rather with the old tires and all the fuel that they had left.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at Nate Stewart. He got up in the wall, but he still recovered to 13th. He came back on those fresh tires. David O'Brown, he was our only caution of the night, going around down the front straightaway. Had a great recovery. He saved the fuel. He ended up 14th. Good recovery. Justin Smith ends up 15th. Brian Mercurio, the points leader, coming in. He finishes 16th. Not sure if that might be enough to lock in, but we'll have to wait after the points are settled, after the other split is done. Nick Golson, 17th. River Hayes, 18th. And Michael Frisch, well, just a rough finish for him. Last truck in the lead lap in 19th after he ran out of gas at the end after running in the top 5 all night long. And then Garrison Hogan, 20th, first truck, 1 lap down. Max Brady, Joe Armstrong, Rocky Boyd, Daniel Nanny rounds out the top 24. And then here we are, rounding out the rest of the field. The final 3 trucks, Nicholas Morris, Santiago Gutierrez, and Ashton Schleiss rounds out the field.
So that's your entire field from Rockingham Speedway, as Michael Venable captures his first win of the round. Split 1 coverage, or the snake split coverage, just ended on the other side. Dalton Millam was the race winner there. They tapped in with us to cover the strategy finish, but what a wonderful finish to the end for Michael Venable, who hangs on. And I'd say that give Channing Baloo maybe 5 or more laps, this race would have been easily decided. It might have still been on the wire because Quentin Warman was only about a car length or so behind Baloo. That also would have been a classic had Venable been out of the equation and we had this race extend in maybe 3, 4, maybe even 2 laps.
Yeah, like I said, just think if we didn't have that caution in the middle, or that other quick yellow we had right after, I believe, the first caution right there. Excuse me. I kept saying we only had 1 yellow the whole night, but then I realized we had another yellow after the restart. But just think, what would have it been like? Probably would have brought everyone down to pit road. We could have seen a straight-up race. But that caution there, that just threw a wrench into the works right there, and a lot of people were able to save enough. But for Michael Venable, he saved the perfect amount, because if it was one more lap, we would have to talk about a different story with a race between Shannon Ballou and Quentin Warman. But what a race for them. I believe we have Michael Venable standing by trackside to talk with our race winner.
And for the first time in round 2, Michael Venable, the race winner here from Rockingham Speedway. Michael, you were on fumes into victory lane, but let's talk about the maximum save necessary to even get to the checkered flag. What were your thoughts like midway through that run, and how could you describe the emotions entering the white flag lap with Channing Ballo catching up and just getting by to the checkered?
Yeah, once I had a decent lead, I was able to save pretty good, and I saw they kept falling back while I was saving, so I kind of just started saving harder. But yeah, I was able to full push the last lap. Just incredible setup tonight by Nexus and John Hall. Couldn't be any happier.
And I wanted to talk about this strategy and how it unfolded. I'm sure that it was a long time in process between the last yellow and then as you guys got that green flag run. What were your thoughts like, conversations like on that last yellow of the race? And were there any expectations that we would have maybe a caution fest, or did you have any expectations that it would come down to the wire just like this where you'd have to save as much as possible?
We were kind of thinking that there was probably going to be another one. But the further we got into the race, kind of felt like it might stay green. So yeah, we just started full saving, and thankfully caution didn't come out.
And in this one, you lead basically every single lap. No shortage of absolute domination, even despite the close call with the strategy at the end of the race. It's safe to say this truck was so strong over the course of the night, and you seemed unstoppable, even when some other drivers tried getting to you. So what was that like to get in this truck, rip around Rockingham, and with this setup and with Nexus Esports working together to lead every single lap and get this win?
Yeah, I did not see this coming at all. I knew the setup was good. We have really fast people on our team, but to come out here and do that, I just, I'm a little speechless.
So as we work in a homestead in Miami, you were below the cut line going into this race. You are for sure one of those above the cut line now, heading into the final race of round 2. What's your mindset with this win, with this jump up the standings, and now that you got to protect territory heading into homestead?
Looking forward to it, honestly. I love homestead, so I know we'll have a good piece for that race and just put in the time for getting the laps down, and I think we can do it.
Well, Michael, we really appreciate the time, and on behalf of all of us here at FTN, congratulations on the win. But before we let you bounce, anybody in particular you want to give the shout out to?
Big shout out, Pat Moose, crew chief, spotter, and Daniel Day for being on the box tonight. Everybody at Nexus, we just wouldn't be here without them. Just such a fun group of guys to be around. And I think that's it.
Anxiety relieved, Michael. We appreciate the time. Congratulations on the win, and we'll see you in a couple weeks' time from Homestead.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
It was close for this Ford F-150, but Michael Venable gets it done in the waning laps after leading basically every single one from green to checkered. We're going to have a word here with third place, Quentin Warman. Daniel Falkingham, you've got him.
I got him. Quentin Warman finishing P3, less than a second out from the lead and from the win with that tire strategy. Quentin, talk about the night. That was a wild one with strategy.
Yeah, I thought for a second that they were all going to make it on fuel. Or actually, it was the opposite. I thought they were all going to not make it. So when I got to Shanning there at the end, I was like, oh, this is a race for the win. I got to go. I tried moving them, but our tires had evened out to the point where I wasn't able to pass them. And Michael was able to save enough fuel, but P3 is still really good. So I have a big cushion on the cut line now going into Homestead.
Yeah, let's talk about more about that strategy. You come down, you pit. Did you ever thought for a second, like, did you ever have a choice that you could maybe save and make it, or did you feel like with how the tire fall off was and just how the flow of the race was going that you wouldn't have been able to make it anyway, or do you think how much the tires were falling off that the tire deficit was going to overcome?
Yeah, I definitely knew I wasn't making it because the entire time my fuel thing was showing that I was 2 gallons short. So I wasn't even going to try to save because I didn't think it'd be worth it since I wasn't leading. I did pit a little late, and at first I struggled to pass a few people that had pitted before me. So I thought for a bit that it was the wrong strategy, but luckily it was able to work out as it went green.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that all settled, like you mentioned, you have a great gap going into Homestead, and you know the job that you need to do. But going in, what's the mindset and what's the preparation going to look like as you try to go and make your first trip to the Contender Series?
I'm definitely going to put in a lot of time for Homestead because Homestead's not really one of my best tracks. I haven't raced it much, but considering the gap that I do have for sure on the cut line now, I'm not going to be too worried. I'll more than likely just need a top 10 at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations on the third place run tonight. You were very strong all race, but the strategy prevailed and you came home with a great result. Congratulations, and any shout outs?
I got to thank everyone at Ryko, Brandon Hawk, Brad Wright, Ken, for all the work that they put into the setup because that set was an absolute ripper there late in the race. And I also got to thank Thomas Lloyd for being on the box. And he really did some good spotting tonight. I got to thank him as well.
Right on. Well, congratulations on the podium tonight. Best of luck at Homestead and best of luck at trying to make the Contender Series.
Thank you, guys.
That is Quentin Warman coming home with a third place run. We're trying to see if we can get a word with Channing Ballou, but he may not be available. So if we don't hear from him before the end of the night, we want to congratulate him on his runner-up finish and him being just so close to getting the win, stealing it from Venable, who was the dominant truck all night, Kenneth.
He was, but he had to work for it on the strategy side of things, and he got it done. We'll try to get a word, hopefully, with Channing Ballou, but we do not have any recollection if he's here. So right now, he doesn't seem to be in the voice chat. I think we'll just wrap things up here on FTN. We had a word with Venable, Warman. Channing Ballou ends up as the second place truck at the end of these 120 laps from the virtual Rockingham Speedway. Boy, Daniel, it was a fun fight at the end. Certainly one we didn't expect, especially after the second yellow came out, just because of the trend that we noticed at Milwaukee, at least that you and David noticed at Milwaukee 3 weeks ago, that one caution could easily create a short one race to the end. It may give somebody on 2 tires a chance to win, but that did not happen. It mattered on fuel, and for the first time in round 2, Michael Venable in a clutch situation from below the cut line now to above it, heading into a pivotal final race of the round at Homestead of Miami Speedway.
What did I say as he was rolling into victory lane? The Rock continues to deliver each and every time, whether it's in real life or on the sim. The Rock delivers again. Just an exciting race. We saw a lot of comers and goers. We saw strategy, which we didn't even thought it was going to be that impactful coming to the end of it, but you saw guys like McCandless, Frisch. They were running second and third almost the entire night. They don't even finish in the top 10. Like, that's just how much this race got flipped on its head with guys signed to pit for tires. We saw there was a lot of fall off that allowed those guys to push, and a lot of those guys trying to save fuel. They just didn't make it. Like Mercurio, he ended down in 16th. Like I mentioned, Frisch, last truck on the lead lap. Not what they wanted, but still, they're still feeling pretty safe going to the final race at Homestead to punch their tickets to the Contender Series yet again for a second straight year. But although, Kenneth, I don't know what to expect going into Homestead, as we'll have a better look at the cut line when we get there to Homestead, as they're still trying to figure out the different splits, figure out all the points. But there's going to be some guys that are going to be feeling pretty good, like Michael Venable, and there will be others that are going to be thinking, like, what could have been, and just now they got to shift their mindset to, we did what we could tonight. It was kind of out of our hands, but now we go to Homestead, and we're going to go make this Contender Series with one race left. And you can't forget, one more thing before we wrap up, even though you may not be in the top 20, there may be a few extra spots if people decide to not accept their invites to Contender from the Coke Series. So a lot of storylines going into Homestead. I can't wait.
It still gives you something to fight for, even if you don't make the top 20, but that leaves us with just one left. Homestead of Miami takes place in just several weeks from now on September 26th. So 2 weeks from tonight, you'll find us live on FTN for all of the coverage of the final race of round 2 in this eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series. It has been a phenomenal season up until now, even with one reduced race, and it's down to the 1.5 miles in South Florida to decide those who enter the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series later in the fall. It'll be exciting. You won't want to miss it. Again, September 26th, 2024, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the FTN YouTube channel. So that will do it for our coverage of tonight's penultimate race in round 2 of the 2024 eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series. For David Kreutz and everyone at FTN that makes it all happen behind the show, and for our broadcast crew tonight, from my colleague in the booth, Daniel Falkingham, I'm Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from The Rock, and a big time congratulations to Michael Venable on his first win of round number 2.